Hello, and welcome back to yet another episode of Literally My Life, My Guide to Girlhood. Genuinely don't know what episode we're on. I want to be I'm so excited to be recording my second episode like I usually do. Don't even know. Which is bad, but Literally My Life literally is my baby. I cannot believe I've been doing this for 9.5 months now. When I sat down and had the idea to start a podcast, I never thought I'd be doing this, but having a podcast has been the greatest emotional relief of all time. Every time I have a problem, I'm I want to sit down and talk about it on the podcast. Somebody can piss me off, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and talk about this, or I'll write it down and be like, I'm gonna talk about this on the podcast. I'm gonna talk about this on the podcast. I'm gonna talk about this on the podcast. And it's just been my video journal. And then the way so many people are starting to like it, I'm like, oh my god, you know what I mean? I am, if you follow me on social media, and if you don't, you should follow at Literally My Life MGTG on Instagram and TikTok to stay updated on all things Literally My Life. But if you follow me on any social media, you know that I constantly promote Literally My Life, or at least I try. I try to promote Literally My Life so much. And it's paid off so well. When people DM me and are like, "Oh my god, I love the podcast. I love the podcast." I'm like, it's just insane to me. This still feels I sound like one of those Disney stars. This still feels so surreal, but it literally does. It literally does. I cannot believe I'm doing this, and I'm so excited. So before we get into today's episode, I wanted to try something new today. Today I'm gonna talk a little bit about my life, and then we're gonna get into the episode because I do want this to be a longer episode. I feel like the last couple episodes I've done have been a little rushed. I felt rushed. I'll listen to them. I listen to my episodes a lot, in my human anatomy class, and I'm like, this felt a little rushed. I feel like I didn't go as deep into this as I could have, or I could have said more, talked about this. You know what I mean? Today, you guys have my undivided attention. I have nothing to do. This episode will come out on time. I'm not tired. I'm so excited for this. This is gonna be one of my best episodes in a while. I'm manifesting it. I'm claiming it. I'm already in it. So what do I have to tell you guys? Well, I decided about 3 hours ago that tomorrow I'm going to start the 75 hard, and I'm going to post on our TikTok. I'm going to keep an update on my 75 hard. I really want to lose weight. I've talked about this in an earlier episode. I really need to lose weight. And I know you're probably like, "Oh, I need to lose weight." I literally do. I just don't feel comfortable in the body I'm in right now. The body I'm in right now, I'll look at pictures of me, or I'll look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, "Oh my god, girl, oh my god." And I just don't like the weight. I'm the heaviest I've ever been. I do want to lose weight really, really bad. And then when I tell people that, they're like, "No, no, no, you look fine. I love this, mama. I love it." And I'm like, "No, I literally hate this weight." So I'm starting a 75 hard. I guess I'll read it to you guys. I've gotten I'm in this group chat and I've gotten 3 messages while I've started recording because I am an interesting person, despite what you've heard. So for my 75 hard, if you can't, this is my 75 hard. So I'm going to do fitness and health. So I'm going to work out every day, and I have a workout plan for literally every day. And then I have a meal plan. I literally have meals that I'm going to eat because I'm not planning for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks and water, hydration. I have something for my Bible study for getting closer to God. If you can read that, watch people be like, screenshot, screenshot. I have something for my mental health and therapy. Right, right, right. If you can see that. I have stuff for my academic and career goals, my college applications, and then I have stuff for finding a college coach, and then stuff for literally my life. Consistency and accountability are also a big part of it, so I have that at the end. So at the end of every week, I'm gonna keep a progress tracker. I'm gonna keep a journal a little bit about my 75 hard, because y'all, I'm exhausted. I'm like, oh my god, but I need a change in my life. I've been feeling I want to go through a healing era. I don't really know what specifically I'm healing from, a bunch of different shit, right? But I've been wanting to get back into my drinking green juice every morning, meditating era, where you're just journaling all the time, trying to heal from something. I don't know what specifically I would be healing from. I want to get back in my healing era, and I'm like, what better way to do that than to do a 75 hard and just start implementing better habits. I had my friend over last night, and we were having a conversation that's also going to relate a little bit to today's topic. And we were having a conversation, and I was telling her, I was like, you need to do more stuff for yourself. You need to hang out with yourself more, take yourself out to dinner, eat better. I'm just giving her suggestions for the situation she was in. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't do any of that. I eat garbage. I eat absolute garbage, guys. the worst it's not even a diet. I just like eat whatever the fuck I want to eat, which is bad. Like, don't do that. You will not live long doing that. Like, don't do that. I eat whatever the fuck I want to eat. I don't work out. I don't like get enough sleep at night. I like get 5 hours of sleep when I really need 8. And that was another goal for tonight. Like, that's another thing on my 75 hard. I need to get 8 hours of sleep every day. Like, I'm not even kidding. Sleep more, get out the sun, protect my peace, pray. Like, that's literally all it is. That's literally all it is. No, but I'm actually really excited to start this. So when I was having this conversation with my friend last night, I'm like telling her all this stuff to do. I'm like, girl, you don't do it. Like, girl, you got to do it yourself. Because I saw a lot of my problems, and I don't want to put her all in Front Street, so I'm not going to talk about like what we talked about, but it's pretty related to this episode. And I just heard her problems, and I really related to like what she was saying, and I was giving her like a clear as day solution, and I'm like, oh my god, like I need to take my own advice. Like, I'm the worst person at that. I will give the best advice for every situation. I will not take it. I do not practice what I preach, and it literally sucks. So yes, I'm starting my 75 hard. I invite you guys. I would love you guys to like do a 75 hard with me. That would be so fun. Like, we could like all do it together, and that'd be great. I'm more than likely gonna post everything like every day. Oh my god. On on our TikTok. So if you guys don't follow at Literally My Life MGTG, that's at Literally My Life MGTG on TikTok. And we can do this together. We can get through this together. We're gonna like lose weight and get like modeling contracts and just live our dream lives and get like accepted into Harvard by the end of my 75 hard. This is also a new setup, guys, for the people who actually watch video podcasts. I don't know who does, but because I know I personally don't. Like, I record video podcasts because I know they do better numbers wise, but I'm like, who actually sits down and watches like the videos? Like, I don't know. I don't do that. To me, if I wanted to watch a video podcast, I would watch a YouTube video. Like, I would not actually look at it. Podcasts are like music. I just like put my headphones in and listen to people talk. Like, I don't actually look at them. But I know you guys actually like them. Like, when I didn't do video podcasts, I would get a lot of requests to do video podcasts. So I was like, okay, obviously I'm going to start doing it. You know, it's about the audience, not about me. But who actually is sitting down? Like, if you're actually watching this, tell me what I'm doing. Like, who actually sits down and watches like what I'm doing? You just probably listen to what I say. But if you actually do, like, mwah, 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 like, I love you. Thank you so much for that. I don't know, guys. I'm bored. Okay, there was another thing I wanted to tell you. Oh, I've been having, like, conflict at school lately, but it's been, like, with, like, one girl from sophomore year who I just, like, don't understand our problem. Her, and then I've been, like, beefing with, like a teacher, which has like also been like very weird. It's like something I don't even want to talk about publicly because I like want to keep it so silent. It's that bad. But I'm like having like beef with the teacher and like one girl from sophomore year. And it's been stressful, guys. But another thing in my 75 hard is I want to stress less. Like, stress is a silent killer. And I feel like that's how I got sick in the first place, because I was so out of my mind stressed. And I do not want to do that to myself again, like ever. So I'm trying to stress less. So I'm trying to like not to take it to heart. I'm trying to like journal out my feelings, like go to therapy, like figure myself out, which is also a hint at a future episode. And like, I'm just trying to like feel better about it, but it's like insane. Like, senior year, I don't know. Yesterday morning I woke up and I was like, I fucking hate senior year. I was like on my way to church and I kept thinking about it and I was crying. I was like, I hate senior year. I hate senior year. I hate senior year. I was like, I called my best friend Friday night telling her the same thing. I was like, I hate senior year. I hate senior year. I hate senior year. And she was like, no, 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 no. When you graduate, you're not going to say that. And then I'm like, when I graduate, I'm definitely going to say the same thing. I'm going to go to college and like tell people like my stories. Like, I'm going to be like, if I gave like a high school recap, I'd be like, freshman year was chill, but I had like a lot of like body issues and like self-esteem issues. Sophomore year, I transferred and it was so much fucking drama. Junior year, I got sick and almost died and had to do it online. And senior year, don't know what it is. So high school's been interesting. But I like high school. I actually really do like high school. Like, it's really fun. Like, I don't know how I'm going to be an older age than high school in less than a year. I don't understand how I'm going to go to college. Like, that thought freaks me the fuck out. But we can talk about that at a later date. Okay, I've like ranted for like 10 minutes. Thanks for listening to that. Now let's actually get into today's episode. Okay, so obviously you can tell by the title. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about my breakup. No, okay, so if you're like a day one listener, you know that when I started recording literally my life, I was still kind of like on my old thing, my old little boo thing from back in the day. I was like still on him, okay? And so you hear that a lot in my earlier episodes, especially like therapy, healing, like stuff like that. I've talked about this guy a lot. I've talked about him inventing, moving on, like since the beginning of literally my life. I've talked about this guy. And I thought it would be so good to like kind of like close that chapter in my life because like I don't they have just moved on so much from him, which is insane because like this time last year I was still so madly in love with him. And I wanted to do an episode basically about him and how a breakup changed my life, but it changed it for the better and how I've like found myself and I'm really excited to talk about this. And so, oh my god, like let's get into it. So, okay, this guy I met when I was 14 years old, and he was my very first love. And I was so in love with this guy. I don't remember. Okay. Oh my god, I remember it. I just like remembered fucking everything. Oh my god. Okay. I met this guy when I was 14 years old. I'm not even kidding, on Snap. I'm not even kidding. I met this guy on Snapchat. Which is the most like Gen Z way to meet a person, but I actually did meet him through Snapchat and I was so in love with him. And I knew we had each other on Snap for like a year and we had each other's numbers and we would text on like we would text like on holidays, like occasionally, like we would talk and text each other and stuff. But we started like actually like taking each other seriously when I was a, like I think I was about to be 15. So it was April 20 or like March. It was like late March 2022. Okay, I remember. And he was posting this girl who was like everyone's TikTok crush at the time. I'm not going to say her name because that's like so embarrassing. And he was posting this girl and he was posting this girl and he was just like, "Oh, this is my TikTok crush." So like so corny, like, "Oh my god." And I remember I just asked him, I was like, "Is that like your girlfriend?" And he was like, "No, but like why do you care?" And like next thing I knew we were talking. And I was like, "Oh my god." But this relationship really stands out to me other than like my other relationships because obviously when you like start, and I think we all feel this way, like when you start dating a guy, those first like couple of weeks are pure magic, pure bliss, and pure puppy love. I have never, like, I felt the bliss before, but I had never felt it to that extent. I was so happy, like, out of my mind in love, so super happy. Just, I was happy all the time. I just had like a different glow. Like, have you ever heard of boyfriend glow? That's what I had. I had boyfriend glow. And my friends would be like, "Oh my god, you look so happy. Like you look so enriched." Everybody but my best friend because I think she low key knew. And that was me. I'm even like blushing thinking about it now because it's nice to reflect on that. It's always nice to reflect on how out of my mind happy I was. I would text him all the time. Okay. So, wait, I'm like skipping stuff. Okay. So, we started talking and we would talk and we would text every day, but I kind of wanted to like maintain a distance in a way because I didn't want to like get wrapped up and infatuated with him. So I would do a thing where I would kind of like text him in the morning. We would text like, "Hey, good morning, this, that, and the third, how'd you sleep?" And then I would kind of like text, like breadcrumb him through the day in a way, like not really text him. And then at night we talk a little more, and then we like really, really talk on weekends, if that makes any sense. So that way I was not so like focused on like, "Oh my God, did he text me back?" Even though he was like a really good texter. So that way I like created a balance so that I was like not so obsessive with his text. And I really like that I did that. And those couple of I think it went all through, I think it was like March to like July 2022. And from March to the middle of April, those were genuinely some of the happiest weeks of my life. And let me tell you why. It was the first time, and I like don't like I already feel myself getting emotional, like, oh my god. It was the first time I had been with someone and I was confident in the way they felt about me. Before I had been that way about other people, like been in the puppy love, and I could tell that they weren't, even though I wanted to deny it or I wanted to like lose my mind over it. I felt like they weren't like that about me. Like, and I knew it deep down, but it was the first time I was completely sure that the guy I wanted me back. Like, it was so simple. And that's one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit. Like, we'll get into that in like a little later, but it was so simple, and I was so surprised by how simple it was. Like, everything before that, every talking stage, every, like, failed, like, dates, bad dates, like, relationships and stuff, it was so complicated, it was so complex. I was always waiting on text backs, and I wasn't, like, sure how he felt, and I was just, like, always going through so much, like, like, it was so complex, like, it was so complicated all the time, right? And then when I got into this relationship with this person, it was so simple. I was like, this is what a relationship should feel like. It should be lightweight, it should be simple, it should be fun. And that's what it was. And I truly, that feeling of those 2 weeks, I truly wish I could get that bliss back. I have never, since then, I have not felt the same. I haven't met anyone who's like made me feel that exact same way since. And I would love, like, that's the thing I miss most about him. The puppy stage, like the puppy love stage we had. Oh my God. The way I felt, I was just over my head excited about this guy. I was so in love with this guy, right? And it was great. And I'm sure you guys, and I hope somebody can relate to that, like that first love, like that, like your first person, like, you know what I mean? It's such a different feeling, and it catches you completely off guard. Like, when I texted him asking him, like, was that his girlfriend, like the girl he'd been posting, I did not expect at all for us to become a thing. And oh my God, my phone is blowing up. I have to like sit on it. I did not expect us to become a thing and for me to fall in love with him. I had no idea that was going to happen, and that made me like him even more, that it was unexpected. And it made, and like, I just fell absolutely in love with this guy. I like was in love with the way he talked and the way he described things and his hair, and like just everything about him to me was just so perfect. And I had never felt that, like, genuinely never felt that way about anyone. And I was so, like, I was ready to do the whole damn thing with him. I was like, I'm so gonna fall in love with him. And then things took a complete 180 and took a turn for the worst. And that hurt me so much. Like, I'm nothing. So that leads us into our next segment. So the relationship, it went wrong. Like most relationships do, but this one took such a left turn that I did not see coming. So, okay. Whew, it's like hard to talk about for some reason. Still, it's been years and it's still so hard to talk about. So, the middle of April that year, we got into an argument over something really petty. Like, we would argue, but they would be like the funniest arguments. Like, it would be like arguing, but you like deep down want to laugh. It was like stuff like that. Like, we would argue, but like literally we would want to laugh and just like laugh it off later and like, be whatever. But it changed, and I said something that I don't know if I struck a nerve or what, and he got really upset with me. And I can't exactly remember what he said, but he had definitely crossed some lines. Absolutely. I can't remember the nature of what he said. I've blacked it out for many reasons. But yeah, he crossed some lines. He said some stuff, and I just remember being so shocked. I was like, oh my God, like, I thought we were in love. Not that we were in love, but I thought we had a mutual respect and liking for each other. I thought things were going to be okay between us. And I never in a million years thought he would talk to me the way he did in that argument. And I just remember feeling so about myself. And I just remember being so sad. I was like, oh my God, I had this thing that was going so well, and I poked the bear and I ruined it. And that's how I felt at the time. Like, now I can look back on it and be like, he was just an asshole, and I just didn't deserve to be talked to or treated the way I was. But at the time, I was like, oh my God, I ruined this amazing thing. I have never felt this way about anyone else. And I felt this way about him. And I feel so bad about it. And da 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 da. And I completely blame myself, which was awful. And we're going to also get into that a little later. But I completely blame myself, and it was bad. But now that I look back on it, there were so many red flags that I missed. Like, that was the first red flag. The way he talked to me when he got upset, right? I mean, he wasn't completely demeaning, but he would just say stuff that made me feel really low about myself. He would just say, I can't remember. I don't remember exactly what he said to me in those arguments. I remember what he said, like, our last argument, but in those, like, arguments, I don't remember. But I just remember what he said was completely demeaning. And it made me feel like less of a person, because it was the first guy I had ever really truly learned to like love in my own complicated way. And it kind of became clear that he did not love me or respect me or anything that he had led me to believe. Like, he did not feel the same way. And that broke my heart into like the littlest pieces, because I had felt, like I just said, like I had felt like we built this foundation and that we were going to be together, and that for the first time in forever, like I found a guy who cherishes me and loves me the way I love him. And it was like all a facade. It like I can't even, like, just think about that right now. I can't even believe that happened. Like, obviously it happens a lot because men are awful, like always choose the bear. But I could not believe that happened. That fucking broke me. Well, it gets worse, guys. So a month or so later, I don't know how, but I ended up, like, this is stupid, but I ended up arguing with like his cousin or someone. I have no idea how that even happened. I just remember I'm like, it's like shooting with his cousin, like, for no reason. I have no idea. But I knew we were arguing somewhat about him, so it was like really bad. Don't know why we were arguing. And then he texted me about it. We start arguing again, but it was like those same arguments that we used to have in the first place, which was like where you'd argue, but you really want to laugh deep down. And it kind of like showed me him before, he had like gone crazy on me, right? And I took him back. I ended up taking him back, guys. And that's so awful. Like, oh, I can't believe I did this. No, I hate that I did that, but I'm glad I also did. I'm really glad that I had this whole experience, and I'll also touch on that a little bit later. But I'm glad I had that experience because it taught me, like, specifically what not to do. Like, if I met him now, I promise you the relationship would have gone so much better because I have such different standards and morals and boundaries. But I had to, unfortunately, curate those standards, morals, and boundaries by being treated like shit with him, right? So I took him back. We get back together, we're talking again, and I am just feeling like the luckiest girl in the world. I've also talked about this in my like past episodes, but he's a D1 football player, right? And he's pretty well known because of it. He's extremely talented. Like, I will not take his flowers from him. He's extremely talented. And so I would start to see like TikToks about him, right? And there would be like girls crushing on him and being like, "Oh my god, this guy's so hot," like da da. And I would feel like the luckiest girl in the world because I used to be able to be like, "Oh, well, that's my man." So I don't know. It was a very different experience than anyone I had ever dated, because I had never dated a D1 athlete like that before, especially not someone like as highly ranked or highly talked about the way he was. So I used to feel like I had pulled like Elvis. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, it was so interesting dating somebody who was considered like a star like that. And so I just felt so lucky and so boostful, and I was so happy. Then I'm not even kidding. Like, 10 days later after we got back together, the same thing happened and we broke up again. Don't know what's going on. But I was so ashamed of it, I don't think I even told my friends. Like, I didn't even, my best friend and I were also kind of like at odds around this time that it happened. So it wasn't like I could like call her and tell her about it. But I just remember I didn't tell my friends. I think I still led some of my closest good girlfriends, the girls that I like confide everything to at that time, I led them to think that we were still together, which is so sad because I knew if I were to like tell the truth about everything going on, hold on, I need water. If I were to tell the truth about everything going on, they would be like, Alex, like, leave this guy, leave this guy. And I knew deep down that's what I had to do. I had to get up and leave him because it was going to continue to be this cycle. It was going to continue to be a cycle of him treating me like shit, me taking him back, him saying I'm sorry, and then doing it again, doing it again, doing it again. So around this time, I was like, I think I started to have like that realization, like maybe I do need to leave him. But I didn't want to. Because when times were good, times were good. And when times were bad, they were so fucking awful. They were so fucking awful. They were so bad. But I also didn't want to leave because, like a lot of other women, when we get attached and when we've been with a person for a while, we want to stay with that person. You know what I mean? Like, I've put in all this energy. I'm in love with this man. And I, at this point, have started planning my life around him and his schedule and his city and his life. And I don't want to get like too much into detail about that, but I had started planning my life around this man and doing stuff to like make him happy and you know what I mean? And just doing a lot of stuff just so that we could be together. And you're telling me I have to leave him and start over with someone else? Absolutely, like, no fucking way. I did not want to do that. But like deep down, I knew it was the only way I would find peace and freedom. It's so important that you recognize those red flags, even in the early stages of love. So, because if I had recognized those red flags from like the first time we argued, I could have probably saved myself so much heartbreak and so much time. And I would have maybe been a different, happier, lightweight person. Like my life would have maybe been completely different had I not taken him back. I'm not even kidding. And I say that because, I was not so deeply, deeply, deeply in love with him until we got back together. I don't know why that made me like him more. I like was so twisted up here. It's so important that you don't ignore those red flags. I would have saved myself so much time and so much heartache had I not. So we actually ended things for good in July that year. He was on like the news or something. Not the national fucking news, but like some news outlet, and they interviewed him or something. And I texted him congratulations, and he like went off on me. And he had kind of told me something while we were arguing. He was like, I'm going to continue to treat you like this, and I'm going to continue to push you away because you deserve someone who really cares about you, and that person is not me. He straight up verbatim told me that. And I still was like, I love you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was a completely different person. Like, I feel so ashamed to say that, but I definitely was. I was like, oh my God, what? Like, when he said that to me, I was so shocked. He was like, I am not going to stop this. I'm going to make you hate me because you deserve better. I am not better. Like, you're a nice girl and you just don't deserve better. And at this point, I'm like, you're telling me this now, like 3 months later, like after I'm in love with you and I've changed my whole life and my whole personality, my persona to be with you, and I've built my life around you, and I've written at one point, guys, I wrote an entire book. I'm not even kidding. And I had planned to give it to him for his birthday that year. Why do I have so many like notifications? Why do people want to text me when I'm recording? Like, what is up with that? Like, I have so many notifications. It's weird. But at one point, guys, I had written a book of poems dedicated solely to him. And I was going to give them to him for his birthday that year. But we didn't make it to his birthday next year, which is so sad. But I wrote this, like, here, I'll read you guys a couple of these poems. Like, they were so beautiful. Like, oh my God. Oh, okay, this is like a perfect one that shows how I felt about him, right? I take a what did it just do? Okay, sorry. I take a look at him, his strong arms holding mine, his beautiful hair all grown out. And as I look at him, I must wonder, what is it like to grow up so beautiful, to have been born so gorgeous, to have the entire world want you, to get everything and everyone you want, including me? What must it be like to grow up that beautiful, to be born with all the gifts one has to grow to receive, and most importantly, out of every woman you could ever want, what made you choose me? You grew up beautiful. Does that not describe like the way I felt about him? I thought he was just like a total catch. And for him to tell me that, for him to say that to me, like I couldn't process that. It took me years to process what he said to me. And I don't know if he had some self-esteem issue. I don't know if he couldn't process that my intentions were pure, because I know he had talked to me before about being with other girls who were kind of into him for his career and for football and for money and stuff. And I think he couldn't process that there was someone out there who just like genuinely wanted him. You know what I mean? Like, and that's a him problem. It's not a me problem, but like it took me years to process that. Like, I don't think he actually was able to appreciate until it was way too late. We'll get into that in a second. I don't think he was able to appreciate that there was a girl out there who didn't care about football or didn't care about the money or anything, and just cared about him and wanted a relationship with him. And I remember telling him, he was like, I told him, I said something around this argument. I was like, I would genuinely really like you and feel the same way about you if you had never picked up a football. If you had never touched a football in your life, I would still feel the same way about you. I just like you that much. And he was like, I don't believe you. No one likes me for me. People like me for football. And it was so sad. And had I been older, I would have probably well, I probably would have like left his ass the fuck alone, right? I wouldn't have even been in that fucking argument. But it was sad for him to like reveal that to me. And it was awful that it had to get to that point for me to see like his true problem. And now that I'm older, I think maybe I don't know. Like, I don't know if he really wanted a relationship, and if I like just made him, like, I don't know if I forced it. I don't know. But I do know one thing is for sure, and I know that he realized at the very, very end when I was fed up and done that my intentions were really pure and that I loved him. And he realized, like, right then and there what he'd lost, and it was so sad. That situation broke me for years, and it, like, changed me as a person, and I don't wanna cry. I really don't wanna cry, that's so embarrassing. I've never cried on here, but it broke me, and it changed me as a person. Because, I don't know, I was, like, at this point where it was, like, I gave all of my energy, and all of my love, and all of my time. You don't think you deserve it, so you change your mind, and you just reject it and, like, send it back to me. Like, really? Or you say this stuff to me, and you talk to me like I've been talked to my whole life, and you talk to me the way, like, my subconscious talks to me, and you see me. I remember writing a poem about that. Like, he saw me the way I saw myself, right? And he would say the ugliest things to me, and be stuff I would say to myself, right? Like that negative self-talk that we talked about broke me down. There's a Drake lyric, like, to quote Drake, there was a Drake lyric in karaoke on Thank Me Later. And it was like, he said something, I know they said that first love is the sweetest, but that first cut is the deepest. Like, that is so true. Like, it is sweet. Oh, sorry. I hit the mic. I'm sorry. It is sweet. It's great. You know, that puppy love, like I said, I've never felt that love, that bliss, like those first 3 weeks I have the boyfriend glow. And then when it's done, it gets you. It stays with you. And it's shaped me into the person I am. And it changes the way I look at relationships. It's changed me as a person. You know what I mean? And we'll get into that for a second. But yeah, so the relationship essentially went wrong. And I remember that night we had talked and we had talked about it, and I was trying to make things better. And he, like, so badly did not want things to be better. And I got him to come around at the fact, right? I remember I got in the shower and my mom read our text messages because I had cried to her about it. Also, at the same time, I've never told this to anyone other than my best friend, but I'll say it. At the same time, that same day, I'd also found out because, like, I think he told me he had been sleeping with other people. And I just broke into tears when I found out. I just broke into tears, like, because it was like, why? It was like, why? And it just didn't make sense to me because, like I said, I like you. Like, you have something that I know other, like other athletes and other guys want. A girl who doesn't care about, your money or your career or anything, who just, like, genuinely likes you. And you have someone who's stable and, like loves you. So why would you do that to me? Like, why would you do that to me? It makes no sense why he did that. And I just remember breaking into tears. So my mom had read my phone and she was so upset about it. She was like, why are you letting him do this? Why are you letting him get away with this? And my mom had blocked him on my phone, and she was like, he is such a piece of shit, Alex. Like, let him go, let him go, let him go. And I remember I was like, I can't. And I remember when my mom pulled me out of the most toxic situation with this guy, my mom made me hang out with her, like, that whole weekend. And we went to, like, the movies, we went to lunch, I cried to her about it every day, and we would talk and we would talk and we would talk after I'd blocked him, and I'd be like, I can't do this. I can't do this. Like, I love him. I want to be with him. And things had gotten so ugly towards then. Like, we had really fought. My mom ended up calling his mom. Like, it was just so ugly. And I was like, this hurts because I love that man. I love him. Like, even after everything he's put me through, I love him. And this has ended on such an ugly note, and I don't know how to make peace with that. And it took me years to make peace with that. But my mom was like, I would rather be upset about leaving him than continue to be upset about the way he's treating you. Because no guy who, like, really loves you is going to treat you like that. And it took me years to realize that too. But I did realize that, right? And that's what matters. So that kind of, like, leads us into, how long have I been talking for? 35 minutes. Wow. So that kind of, like, leads us into our next segment, which is basically about, like, the lessons I've learned and, like, my boundaries and standards. So after we ended things, right, guys, he made a TikTok, and I would show it to you guys because I'm, like, that fucking messy. But I'm not because, like, I, like, worst fears, like, people finding out who, like, his identity. Like, oh my God. But he made a TikTok about me and he posted it and it became and like it went viral. But he already had a lot of followers and people were talking about it and people were talking about me and it was just nasty. And he would just basically said like he felt bad about it and it was just bad. And at that point I could have like so easily picked up my phone and unblocked him and been like, hey, like I saw this TikTok, like da da, because he had expressed remorse, he had expressed regret, like, and I didn't. And for years I felt so bad about it. I was like, why didn't I just like pick up the phone and call him? Why didn't I text him? Like, he obviously felt bad. Like, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I do that? And I was like, and now I'm looking at him like, why would I have done that? And that's why I'm like able to reflect on like my lessons learned. Like, if you guys follow like the Sprinkle Sprinkle girl, love her. She has this sound that's like if a guy tosses you in the trash can and tells you he doesn't want you and spits on you, it's the garbage man, take you away, and then you get out the trash pile and run back to his house, what do you look like? And I was like, you got a point. Like, oh my god, like, okay, you have a point. You have a point. You got me there. You got me there. And that's how I was like, now I look back at it and I'm like, thank God I didn't do that. Thank God I had finally had enough. Like, even though my mom kind of had to like make that decision for me, I'm glad I got to that point where I had enough. Like, I have had enough with him, right? And even though that experience hurt me, it also changed me as a person. And I would not be nearly independent or kind or firm as like I am now had that not happened. I'd like promise you I would not be on this podcast. I would not have the aspirations that I have now had I continued to be his girlfriend. I would not be as strong-minded. I would not have been as like strong-willed had I continued to be his girlfriend. I had become the type that I used to make fun of. I used to like my life at one point completely revolved around him. It was all about him. And I was like, why was I like that? Like, but that was like one of my goals. Like, even when I was getting into that relationship, I was like, my life cannot revolve around him. And it did not consistently revolve around him, but I I really wanted to be with him. And it revolved around him. And his, career was so big, right? And his presence and his personality was so big. I didn't think there would be room for me. I didn't think there would be room for me to exist or to want things, and I would just be his girlfriend, and I was completely comfortable with that. And I'm like so glad I'm like thank God it didn't happen. I was telling my friend this last night. I'm like, rejection is God's redirection. Like, thank God. Like, maybe life would have been different, or maybe, whatever. But even though things could have been different, it doesn't mean it could have been better, right? So that's another one I had to stomach and hit on. So it was hard. It was really hard, but I am really happy that it happened. This experience taught me, like I said, the importance of setting boundaries and maintaining my standards. I will never, ever in my life, no matter how much I love him, let a man treat me the way I let him treat me. Ever. I will never let a person make me feel that low about myself ever again. That will never happen. And I hate that I had to get to this point and I had to let that happen to set that boundary and have that standard. But like, I will never feel that way again. I am so strong and confident about that. I never will, because of that experience. And it also, I have found, has saved me from being treated like that again. When I meet a guy now and I can tell isn't that into me or isn't reciprocating the energy that I give him, or is just not where I like sense those red flags, or is just not a person I see myself growing with, like our intentions are different, I leave him, I cut him loose. I do not put up with that shit anymore. I used to be the girl that put up with everything. And then I lost, my first love, and I almost lost my life. And it took, and I hate that it took that much, but it took that for me to realize I deserve more. I deserve better. I do not deserve to be treated the way I'm being treated. I love you. My intentions were completely pure. I centered my life around you for a while. I did everything I possibly could to make you happy, and it wasn't enough for you. And that's not my problem. It's not my problem. So, if you are going through something similar, right? If you're in a similar situation with a guy, like there's a guy that you just have that soft spot for, and we've all been there. I had never had a soft spot. I still do have a soft spot for that guy. I still do. There's still a little part in my heart that still, like, when I see stuff about him, or like he's done something good, like his career, I'm happy for him. Like, I don't even have that hate in my heart for him because of how much I loved him. That's how much I loved him. Even after everything he put me through, when I see he's like done something great for himself, like when he got his NIL deal or something, I'm like, I am so proud of him. I loved him. You know what I mean? Like, but if you were, I don't know what I was saying. If you were at where I was, like, you have that guy you had a soft spot for, and you're just taking, no matter what it is, whether it's he's cheating on you constantly, or he won't date you, or whatever it possibly could be, even if you have that soft spot, sometimes love is not enough. One-sided love is not enough to make a relationship happen. It's not. I thought my love could carry us all, like Janae Aiko, like, I love me enough for the both of us. Not how it works. No, it's not how it works. It's not how it works. So you may feel, I love this guy so much. Why is that not enough? Why can't I make things work even though he's doing this to me, or even though he's doing that to me? Why can't I make things work? Why can't this be? Because he does not want you. And if a guy does not want to be with you, things will never work. Ever. When a guy meets you, he knows what he wants with you. Like, guys we give them so much less credit into like how smart they are and how calculated they are. Like, when a guy meets you, he knows what he wants from you. He knows if he wants to sleep with you only, if he wants to date you, if he wants to be with you, how he's going to treat you. He knows that when he first meets you. He knows that. And they always give us subliminal hints by the way they treat you. If you're talking to a guy and you're not dating within like a month, he's not going to date you. Like just like stuff like that. Or if he doesn't go out of his way to maybe get you flowers or make sure that you feel appreciated in whatever love language you have, he's never going to do it. If he doesn't do it when he first meets you, it's never going to happen. And I used to be that same girl who used to chase on to that hope. That's what I did with this guy. I used to chase on to this hope that he's going to do it someday. He's going to come to a senses someday. He's going to love me someday. Someday will never happen. If it's not when he meets you, it's not going to happen. But like I said, back to my original point, even though this experience hurt me so much, I'm glad that it taught me what it did. Like I said, it's protected me from a lot of really crappy guys. I'll get into that later. But it's protected me from dating guys like him again, or worse than him. And I've made my biggest promise to myself. I made it when I broke up, like when I left him that day. And it was, I'm never going to let anyone make me feel like that again. 2 years later, still haven't. I don't plan on it. Like, never will. Why did I not realize the lighting was so bad? Oh my God. I have to stay back so the lighting's good. I'm like so into it. I'm like jumping. Like, I feel like Joel Osteen. Like, this is so good. I could talk about this literally forever. Okay. So after we had broken up, I transferred schools, right? I had left Shards and I'd gone to Whitney Young, right? Completely different environment. And I did a couple of things. These are some of my personal anecdotes that helped me get through that heartbreak, that first really nasty heartbreak. And the first thing with that was music. I'm not even kidding. It was music. I listened to so much music. I actually have a playlist on my Spotify. If you guys should have my Spotify because it's linked to this podcast. But if you don't, it's Alex the Kardashian, which is really incredibly stupid, but that's okay. So it's Alex the Kardashian. Where's the fucking playlist? Like, it's called Loving Him Was Red. Love this playlist. And it has every song that encapsulates that feeling in the Red album. And the Red album literally was this comforting soundtrack of my heartbreak. Listening to Red, the metaphors in Red. Oh my God, Red is so about your first love. Like, oh my God. And Red being about her 3-month situationship with Sel Mother of Taylor. Like, I love Taylor. No. Listening to Red helped me so much. And there were a lot of other songs that also helped me, like Better Off by Ariana Grande and like July by Noah Cyrus. There were a lot of other songs, but Red, that album specifically, and specifically the song really helped me because the song had a lot of like metaphors. So one of my favorite metaphors in the song was like touching him was like realizing all you ever wanted was right there in front of you. I used to use that heavily. Like, yes, it was. Like, I used to feel like I was fucking floating when I would touch this guy. I would like, when I hugged him, I was like fucking floating when I was around this guy, right? touching him was like realizing all you ever wanted was right there in front of you. Memorizing him was like, what was it? Memorizing him was like realizing, like remembering the lyrics to your old favorite song. Fighting with him was like solving a crossword and realizing there's no right answer. Moving on was like wishing you never found out love could be that strong. But with that fucking Red album, 10 out of 10. That deserved album of the year. Oh my god, it was so amazing. And I listened to that music, and the music made me feel very comforted because it was like, I feel this way. A lot of other people feel this way. A lot of other people have their first loves and go fucking through it. Another thing I did was journal. I have journals on top of journals on top of journals, and I have so many diary entries, and they have been about him. I have written so much about him. He has been like the best muse. As someone who started off as a poet and is now an incredible podcaster, he has been my muse for years. Like, if I need to really channel into something, if I want to write about something, that is what I go back to. I write and I write and I write and I write and I write about that boy. And I know you're probably like, girl, it's been years. But he's like the best fucking muse. Like, oh my God. The third thing that I did, this is like probably specific to me, but like I said, I was able to change schools. So changing schools, I had planned to transfer schools anyway when I had first met him. It had nothing to do with us breaking up, but it just happened that we broke up right before I went to a new school. And when I broke up with him and I was able to go to Whitney Young, it provided a complete fresh start. And it contributed to my healing because I was able to now in a new environment discover not only who I am in this new environment, but who I am in this new environment as a person who was recently broken up with, right? Or who recently had their first relationship, their first real relationship end, right? And it hurt and it was confusing and it was, what is it? It was happy free. It was, what are we? Happy free, lonely, and confusing at the same time, right? That's how it was. It was up and down roller coaster ride. I'm telling you, the Red album was like the soundtrack of my life, that whole breakup. And that's how it was. It was completely, it was hard to be on my own like that. It was hard to do everything all over again and become like this completely independent person. But I think I was able to find who I was. Really, I became this fearless like superwoman that I would have not have been had I been his girlfriend. I started clubs. I got into clubs. I was on the debate team, chess team, cheer. I made a bunch of different friends. I tried new things. I just became a completely different person. And I know I would not have been that person had I been in love with him still, right? Another thing I did was take risk in love. So when I don't want to be so specific because I know a lot of people listen to like, you bitches are nosy, but I tried again, soon enough, maybe 2 or 3 months after or was it 2 months or probably wasn't enough time. It was like a month, but I tried again. And even though that situation itself, and I literally could do a whole episode on that, like little, like 4 week situation. Like, I'm not even kidding. But even though that went so south, I'm happy it happened because even though it didn't end perfectly, I'm really glad that it happened because of what I learned. And I was happy that I was able to put myself back on Front Street. And then when that didn't work out, a couple of months later, I was able to try it again with someone else, right? That also didn't work out. Like, no, none of them worked out, right? But it was able, I'm glad, at the end of the day, I'm happy about what I learned, right? You have to grow through what you go through. And even though these relationships don't end ideally, and, I've gone through so much with guys, I've gone through so much with, this guy alone. Oh my God, if I were to do like episodes on my dating history, we'd be sitting here for hours just drinking our water. It'd be bad. And even though, it was really bad and I've gone through a lot, I'm really, really happy that I've learned the lessons that I've learned because like I said, I may not have a perfect love life, but I have a really peaceful one. And so I'm really happy that I was able to be so resilient and have this journey of self-discovery that emerged through this experience, through my first love and dating after him and finding solace in life after your first big heartbreak because it hurts. It hurts when you first get broken up with, like when that first ends. And I'm so happy like God had aligned that plan for my life, for me to start a new school right after it ended, for me to meet someone else right after it ended, for me to try again and to become a new person. And even though, not everything went the way I wanted it to happen, I just was able to, I don't know, I feel like I was just able to learn so much. And I'm so out of my mind grateful for that. Like, oh my God, guys, we've been talking for 52 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna put the mic down because I need water. That was sponsored. Oh my God, we've been talking for 52 minutes. Well, get tidy because I still have more to say. Okay, so that kind of leads into our next segment, which is kind of like healing through isolation. So the summer after my sophomore year was a lot for me, right? And the summer after my sophomore year, I got really, really sick, right? I don't want to talk about it. Like, that's a whole episode about itself, and I've been writing around that episode and trying to figure out how to talk about it. I got really sick, right? And I was completely isolated because what can you do when you're sick but sit in the bed all day and watch TV and scroll through your phone, and if God willing, right? And doing that all day, every day for a couple of months gave me so much time to isolate and reflect on my previous relationships, but this one specifically. This period of time allowed me to reset emotionally and mentally and physically and become a new person. I thought more and more constantly about this situation, and I journaled more and more, and I cried about it more and more, and I was able to talk about it more and more because I felt like I was so distracted in my daily life, which was part of like a good thing because I said I had just started a new school and I was doing a lot of new stuff and it was really great. You know what I mean? But it was really, I think it was a good thing because I was able to, like I said, I was really distracted. I was able to do a lot of stuff, but it was also a bad thing because I felt like I did not get the time that I needed to sit there and actually process like the hurt of what happened, right? So this time allowed me the time to do that and to really reset emotionally and mentally. And that's when I was able to come to the conclusion that I came to earlier, which was I'm never going to let anyone treat me like that again. I am too bright of a person, too happy of a person, too kind of a person, too loving of a woman to ever sit there and let a person treat me like that. No one is going to make me feel like that again, ever. And I've set new boundaries and new standards that I've established for future relationships. Like I said, if I meet a guy now and he is not as into me as I am into him, and you can tell that very early on, or if he just kind of blows me off, or he does something I don't like, sorry, I have to put my phone on do not disturb because everybody wants to message me when I'm recording. No, but if I meet a guy who doesn't do the things that I see in my like ideal or future partner, or just anybody I want to spend my time with, I leave them where they're at. I cut them loose. I don't need that in my life. Like I said, I have a very peaceful fucking love life. I'm not being lied to. I'm not being manipulated. I'm not being, and obviously we're humans and everybody wants companionship. And I would love to be like in a healthy relationship and meet like Mr. Perfect and stuff. But I knew then I kind of came to like that realization that I wasn't going to meet Mr. Perfect or more like do anything more special or like better or find a better relationship or a better person until I was a better person and have a better relationship with myself. And that period of time gave that to me. And it also gave me this fear, and we're going to touch on that in a second. It also took away my fear of being alone. I felt like I used to be a little bit of a relationship hopper, and I used to kind of like jump and jump and jump, and I would kind of like one thing end and I'd find another and I'd find another. Like I said, like it would take me a month and it would just be so bad, and my hurt from my past relationships would pour over to my new relationship and it'd be an ongoing cycle. And I don't have that problem anymore. If something hurts me, I take the time to deal with it. I'm like, you know what? This guy really hurt my feelings. I need a couple of months. I'm not going to look at anyone else. I'm not looking for a guy. I don't go out, with my friends anymore and I'm like looking for attention, or I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need that in my life anymore. And we're going to get to that in a second. But that isolation, even though it was a very hard time in my life, being sick like that, it gave me that gift. It gave me the gift to reset emotionally and mentally. And I'm really happy that I was able to do that. And that's a piece of advice I would definitely give to somebody going through their first heartbreak. Give yourself some time, like especially if you get broken up like right before the summer. Do not have a hot girl summer. Do not have a whole girl summer, okay? Take the time to process that. That shit hurts. Like, you just went through something that is a very big deal to a lot of people. You know what I mean? Take the time to sit on that and chew that up and reflect on that. You know what I mean? It's hard to deal with, and that was a mistake I made. You cannot just go on in your daily day-to-day and live like daily life and you're carrying on this burden. It was a burden that I was carrying in my chest. Every day I woke up with that burden on my chest of what happened between us two because I didn't seek out the help that I needed or that I wanted. And that period of isolation, even though it was sad, I had to go to those extreme circumstances to get to that point. But that period of isolation really helped me realize that. And I feel like had I not had that period of isolation, even though it fucking sucked, I would not be nearly as emotionally intelligent, or at least not emotionally intelligent enough to have a podcast if that didn't happen. Okay, so my next segment is you don't need a man to complete you. Okay, you literally don't need a man to complete you. Oh my God, if that was not the key takeaway I got from my period of isolation, I don't know what it is. There is such importance in self-sufficiency and independence. Such importance. Such importance. And I didn't realize that was so corny. But I didn't realize how okay, hold on one second. Hey! I didn't realize how incredibly important it was to like being by yourself and like being alone until that period of isolation came, right? And I was pretty much isolated my entire junior from the after my sophomore year to so the summer after sophomore year to now, which is the beginning of senior year, completely isolated, right? Just no contact with anyone in the outside world. No, I'm kidding. But I was able to spend so much time alone that I realized the importance of being alone and the importance of counting on yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I used to feel like I needed a guy or a relationship or someone to love me to feel like I was lovable. And that's so much fucking bullshit. And even when I see TikToks now that it was like, oh my God, I cry when I see girls get praised by their girlfriends. Like, I wish that was me. Like, I wish a guy loved me like that. Like, obviously everybody fucking wants that. Like, it's fucking ideal, right? But you don't need it. Like, you don't need a guy to be absolutely in head over heels in love with you. Sorry, I have to pick up my teddy bear, which says, I love you. You don't need a guy to be absolutely head over fucking heels in love with you to realize how lovable you are, to realize how great you are, to see your potential and see how, like see how many things you can do. So like you don't need to see that through a guy. Like you can realize that yourself. And I didn't realize like that until that happened to me. I was like, I like myself. I go out to dinner by myself. I watch TV by myself. I like sit in my room and write in my journal and write poems and have so much fun with myself. And I like who I am. It just like clicked in my brain one day. I like who I am. I like my character and who I am as a person. And once I was able to do that, not only did I completely stop relying on a man for that love and that validation, but I also stopped giving a fuck what people thought about me, which I've talked about a lot before. But like I said, when you get to know who you are as a person and love who you are as a person, you don't have people fuck with your character like that. Had I been this emotionally intelligent and this in love with myself and knew my character the way I did back then, I would have never tolerated that shit. I would have never dealt with that guy. Because the relationships you have with other people start with the relationship you have with yourself. If you have a poor relationship with yourself, that is going to reflect in your relationships with other people. No matter how much you try to hide it or conceal it, it is going to reflect. If you do not like yourself, if you are constantly putting yourself down, it is going to reflect in your relationships with other people, especially in your romantic fucking relationships. Men are, and especially in your romantic relationships, and men are evil. Men will manipulate that. They will see that you're insecure. They'll see that you want them more than they want you, or that you think that they are the prize, and they will use that against you in another way. They will either continue to like threaten to leave you or cheat on you or do whatever the fuck they think they can get away with because they know you feel low about yourself and that you don't have the self-esteem to get up and leave him the fuck alone. And obviously that hurts and it's bad, but you're not going to have a good fulfilling romantic relationship or even a good fulfilling meaningful friendship if you do not have a good relationship with yourself. And having that relationship with myself has helped me so much. I don't need a man to fulfill my life. I don't need a man to love me to feel like I'm lovable. I love Alex. I like Alex. I can spend time with Alex and do everything a guy could do for me. I can buy myself flowers. You know what I mean? I can watch all the TV shows I want to watch. I can go to dinner alone. What do I need? Like, I don't need a guy to constantly reassure me that I'm a great person because I know I'm a great person. And you don't need a relationship to feel whole or fulfilled because there's not going to be someone with you all the time. Like, do you want to end up like a relationship hopper, been married multiple times because you just can't be alone? You just constantly are chasing that validation. It gets fucking old. You don't want to be that person when you're in your 30s, you've had multiple husbands, a lot of boyfriends, you keep going through man after man, relationship, because you're scared to fucking be alone. Get over your fucking fear of being alone. I promise you, you're probably a much more beautiful person than you think. You are such a beautiful person. You are so, like, you have such a light to you. You do not need someone to reassure you of that to realize how fucking amazing you actually fucking are. I'm so serious when I say that. I can confidently say now, I don't need a fucking man. I don't need a bunch of friends. I like me. I don't give a fuck. I genuinely like myself. And that works out for me because now I don't chase relationships, right? I'm not in toxic relationships. I'm not in toxic situations. I'm not putting up with the shit I used to deal with because back then I didn't like myself, right? That guy sensed it from a mile away. He knew I didn't like myself that much. He knew I liked him and I thought he was the prize. And you see where that got me, right? It put me through the fucking ringer with that guy. He was able to hold that against my head. He was able to talk to me any way he wanted to. He was able to sleep with anyone else he wanted to because he knew I would love him no matter what because I didn't value my time enough. I didn't respect myself enough to get up and leave him the fuck alone. Now I don't have that problem. I like myself. I don't have to deal with that anymore. I don't chase relationships. I don't chase friendships. When a bitch acts fucking weird, I don't hang out with the bitch anymore. A guy acts fucking weird, I don't text the guy anymore. I don't put myself in situations where I'm not wanted. I'm tired of feeling lonely. I'm tired of feeling unwanted. I'm tired of not being satisfied with the way I'm being treated. And that all starts with the way I'm treating myself. You don't need a man to complete you. You don't need a relationship to feel whole. You don't need a bunch of friends to feel whole. You need you to feel whole. I'm I'm so fucking serious when I say that. Whoo, guys, that got me. Hold on, we got to take another water break. I've had 3 of them so far. I have just been glugging down this little water, guys. Okay, that's so inappropriate. Woo, I feel the spirit, guys. What is up this slide? I feel the spirit in me. That was a good one. Okay. And now for my final thoughts. Okay. My first love hurt. I'm really happy that it happened. I'm really happy that I was able to experience what I experienced and I was able to have that puppy love and be so in love and be so happy, even though it ended up sad. I listened to this Bojack Horseman audio that was like, so the real question is, was it worth it to feel good for a little bit, even though it ended up sad, or would it have been better if it never had happened at all? And I've been able to finally answer that question, and it was worth it. It ended up sad. I ended up sad. I changed as a person, but I changed for the better, and I'm so much happier. I still hate to this day that it took me going through so much to realize that all I need was myself and that the relationship with myself was key. I hate that it took so much out of me to get there, but I'm really happy that where I'm at, and I'm really happy with the person that I am. Heartbreak is hard. Healing is not linear. There's still days where I wake up and I miss him. Like when we first broke up, I used to have a lot of like, oh my God, I need my boyfriend moments. You know what I mean? Like I'd be like, something would happen and I'd want to text him or I'd want to call him or I'd want to tell him about it. And I would have a lot of like, oh, I need my boyfriend moments. And eventually those stopped. Like now it's just like when I'm upset, I'm like, I need to breathe. I need to pray about it. I need to do something else. Like he doesn't even come to my mind when I get upset. And those, like I said, those first wounds, like that first love, they cut really deep, but that doesn't mean that they cannot be healed. You know what I mean? I'm really glad that I had the experiences that I had after that breakup. I'm glad I was able to transfer schools, even though that was crazy. I'm happy I was able to date again, even though that was crazy. I'm happy I was able to become the person that I am now, even though I'm crazy. I'm really grateful for my life because I know I confidently say, like I said before, I would not be doing this podcast. I would not be giving you guys advice. I would not be nearly as loving or enduring or like big sisterish had I had stayed with him. Just because things could have been different doesn't mean they could have been better. You know what I mean? And so for anyone who is going through something so similar right now, know that you're not alone and that you're so loved in that so many other girls are going through that. I feel like a lot of times I used to feel like I was alone in that. And I was isolated. Nobody had gone through what I went through, but like people have, like, reach out for help. Like, don't sit there and struggle with that heartbreak and that heartache alone. Like, it's hard to fucking deal with. You know what I mean? You're not alone. You're so loved and you're so beautiful and so brilliant and such a bright person that you don't have to deal with what you're given. You can make a beautiful life out of something completely fucking new. And it's going to be scary. It's going to be fucking hard. I've faced millions of of criticism and so much adversity and stuff, but I've still been able to like completely rebuild my life twice. You know what? You just cannot give up until you win. And that's what's going to happen with you. There's going to be a day when you're waking up and it's not as hard as it used to be, or you're just going to wake up in a day and you're going to feel better about it. It's not going to be the first thing you think about in the morning. I hope that offers some solace. I'm giving you guys the biggest virtual hug, you know? I still have love for that person, but do I have love enough to get back together with it? I don't know. I don't think so. No. It's just over and it hurts. I feel like this episode was kind of like a like completely closing the door on that chapter in my life and like completely starting anew, because I've been thinking about it and thinking about it and always hinting about it and using this as a reference point, and finally explaining it. It feels so fucking freeing. I feel so good. I'm like going to go in there and like take like the best bubble bath. It's going to be great. You know what I mean? But I hope you know you're not alone and you're so loved, and my DMs are literally always open. I love you guys so much. Okay. Now I'm going to do a little bit of, I want to know you guys are so loved. Okay. Now for our final segment, I'm going to do just like a few questions from Ask Alex. I didn't get like a lot this week, so I'm going to just read some of them that I did get this week. I love doing Ask Alex, guys. I really, really do. Oh my God. Okay. So let's see what you guys submitted this week. You guys are crazy, by the way, on here. Okay, what is it? Okay. Where are these? Oh, okay. Hi, Queen. How do you practice self-love in a time where it feels impossible to do it? It is really hard for me to practice self-love when I'm like really criticizing myself, or I'm like really going through it. Or especially in like in moments of crisis, it's really hard to do it. And that was part of my 75 hard. That's like a part of my 75 hard. One thing I'm working on is like daily affirmations, like just looking in the mirror and just being like, I really, really love myself. Because, like I said in this episode millions of times, like if I don't have a good relationship with myself, I'm not going to have a good relationship with other people. And I'm going to hinder myself in other ways that avoids me from having good romantic relationships, good friendships, you know? So I learned the importance of self-love first, and then you just do minor things and then major things to implement it. So when you're going through a time of crisis, one thing I like to do is like a reward system and treat yourself. Get yourself something nice. And like, let's say I had a hard day. I do this thing. I can't do it now because I'm on 75 hard, but I do this thing where I'll like get myself ice cream after a hard day. You know what I mean? Or like just pat yourself on the back, or like watch your favorite TV show, or do a bubble bath. Like do something for self-care. Journal it out. Do something for that, because self-love is so important. It's literally so important. Like I said a million times, like you're not going to get anywhere without self-love. So remember to implement it throughout your life. Okay. Hi Alex. What are your thoughts on teens doing drugs and wanting to be scammers? Very interesting question. Does not really fit with my aesthetic for the episode. I think it's really fucking sad. I have a really close friend who I like kind of like grew up with. He's not really close anymore. We actually don't talk, but we were really close when we were younger. And he wanted like a career in basketball, I think. I think he wanted to be like a professional basketball player. And he had all these dreams for himself. He was leaving on his midnight train to Georgia Girl. And he gave it all up to become a scammer. It was like the saddest thing I have ever fucking seen. I think it's sad, but I think a lot of people feel like that's their only way out of like poverty. A lot of people are taught that the only way of getting out of poverty, especially for black men, is like to be a basketball player or a drug dealer or a rapper. Like that's the only way you're gonna make money. Like we don't teach, and that's a generational issue. We don't teach our young black men and women that you can get out of the hood by being doctors and lawyers, not just, rappers, basketball players, and scammers. So that might be somebody's last resort if they're doing it for fun. I don't fucking know. I put my hands up in the air. Okay, last one. That was a little inappropriate. I'm not going to say that. Okay, I'm going to skip this one. How do I deal with separation anxiety with the guy I'm talking to right now? Oh my God, that's perfect. I feel like I just touched on that. To deal with your separation anxiety, spend more time with yourself, get more comfortable with yourself, do more things with you. The more you spend like time with yourself and you get more comfortable with yourself, the less you rely on other people to feel comfortable. Like, you're not going to get that separation anxiety because you're like having so much fun with yourself. You're like going to forget about it. Like, I'm telling you, it really does help. The more, like, even if it's just like taking yourself out to dinner more, going to the gym more, just like doing stuff for yourself, that will help with your separation anxiety with this guy, I promise you, because he's not for, like, God forbid, but like, he's not forever. Like, he's not going to be around all the time, and this is like not guaranteed. This is like the guy you're gonna marry, you know what I mean? So you need to be able to be comfortable with yourself, you know what I mean? Or we just went through that millions of times. So I really hope that answers your questions. Please submit to my Ask Alex column. The form is in my Instagram link at literally my life mgtg. I answer your questions at the end of every episode, and I really enjoy doing it. Please submit for next week's episode. Okay, guys, this is it. This is really, really the end of the episode. This was the best the best hour and 15 minutes of my life. I'm not even kidding. This was a great episode. I manifested it at the beginning of the episode. I was like, this is going to be a great episode. And it was. Thank you to everybody who listens every week. I genuinely still can't believe I'm still doing this. I'm glad I was able to do this episode. My final like closing remarks is like I can close the chapter on that guy and just let it go. Like, this was like my last like thing, like finally being able to talk about it, because it was a burden I used to carry, and now I feel a lot better that I don't have to carry it anymore. You're so loved. Remember that endlessly. You're so loved, and you're such a beautiful person. Like I said, it all starts with self-love. I feel like that was the key takeaway of this episode, and I've really been able to find myself and become such a beautiful person because of that breakup. So thank you for listening to How a Breakup Changed My Life for the Better. I am a completely different, happier, more social person. And this really talking the bitch now has podcasts that you listen to. Okay. I love you guys so much. I will see you guys next week. Please remember to follow at Literally My Life MGTG on Instagram and TikTok to stay updated on all things My Guide to Girlhood and to submit your questions to my Ask Alex column. Love you guys. Mwah. I will see you guys soon. Bye.